Welcome back to Data Nerds. I'm Mike Brown, joined by,
Pat Healy.
and this week I actually have a case. I feel like Pat's been bringing all the cases recently. Um, so, because I guess he has fun stuff, but my fun piece of equipment is the Runeasi. It is a running gait analysis belt, essentially. Tells a bunch of different metrics. We'll go into that later. But so case description, I feel like I wrote more than I necessarily needed to on here, but essentially just ultra marathoner, not currently having any pain, just wanted to come in for a gait analysis to see if there was anything we needed to change about his gait. Quote, I feel like I have an imbalance and have for a while. His right leg feels pretty strong with his left leg weaker. Um, when people say that, I often ask what they did like it for high school sports. I often hear when that's the case that like someone played soccer, um, which I then attribute that to like usually the plant leg is stronger. So like people are like, oh, I'm a righty, but my left leg always feels stronger. It's like, well, yeah, you plant on your left leg so then you can finesse with your right leg usually. um, but he was a goalie, so he wasn't kicking as much, but I guess like he had to kick some heat whenever he was. Um, so injury history, honestly, these things weren't super relevant to this, but just to put it in. So he tore his meniscus on his left side, bilateral patellar trauma from being hit by a car. That was wild. His patella, like one of it, I think both, are like bumped because they broke like in half fully, and then they had to like put them together. So it was like that was pretty interesting.
Wait a sec.
Um,
No way.
yeah,
You can't just say this and not have us ask questions. So
I
this guy was laid up for however many weeks because he had both his patellas surgically repaired.
that's my understanding. I didn't ask too many questions because I was like, oh, we got to get to the run analysis.
Okay, that's
That
fair.
was
He did come for that service. So, okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that was like 10 plus years ago, essentially. Um, so
What?
and he was like, yeah, I don't really feel it at all. And so like if he was like, yeah, I feel like knee weakness because of that, I'd be like, yeah, it makes sense. Uh, but but he didn't say he felt it, so I didn't want to push too much. And I was also like, if there is some weakness, we'd see it on the analysis anyway. um the more recent thing that he had was a left Achilles tendinopathy, which lasted a while, but that was in 2022, which feels like it was recent, but it isn't that recent.
Nope.
um, Unfortunately. And then he also said he had a right tibial bone injury, but didn't say when. So it was kind of offhanded, like, "Oh yeah, I did have that." I'm like, "Well, okay." Um,
Get on this treadmill now. Put this on.
yep. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about like my procedure. I've talked about this a couple times before, and I feel like uh, I wasn't super thorough with like the setup, or like explaining the setup. I was good, with the patient, but just not explaining it here. So for this, we want the Run Easy belt on the skin over the sacrum. There's like a little pod that you want essentially like equidistant between the two PSIS. Um, and then what I often do is I actually, this guy was wearing half tights, which is awesome. I love when people wear half tights for this because it kind of like cinches the belt in place. But so I just have them like roll the half tights down. We put the belt on, clip it in front, like tighten it as needed. And then they just roll the half tights back up over it. And then and then that kind of like keeps it all in place. I also like half tights/tights because then we can just like see anatomical landmarks better.
And
Um,
science knows it makes you run faster.
yeah,
Science
you
science
just
knows that you run faster in half tights.
I mean, if he was wearing a speed suit, that may be the move. Just
Whoa,
put the
okay.
whole speed suit on over the over the thing. Um, but anyway, so it was also 7 a.m. So normally I do a 3 minute like warm up to get the pace, but I was like, it's 7. Why don't we do a 5 minute warm up? Just to like kind of find pace, just going to whatever self-selected easy pace he has. Um, I can't remember exactly what it was. I wrote it down on the things. Um, but so then 5 minutes at easy pace and 1 minute data collection at easy pace. And then increasing speed to whatever like his self-selected like tempo pace is. So like a comfortably hard pace that like he could hold for like 30-40 minutes. Um, and then 2 minutes holding at that pace just to like acclimatize again, and then 1 minute data collection, and then it was done. If he needed to like do a short cool down, he could. Something I put at the bottom too. So like during these data collection periods, that's one when I had the Runeasi going. I didn't have it going the whole time because I didn't want to like mess up the averages, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But then I also do 20 seconds of video recording using slow mo on the iPhone. It does need to specifically be slow mo because that's 120 frames per second versus normal video is 60 frames per second. The literature does highly recommend 120, so then you can like better see the specific uh like specific points of the gait. Like I think I I was having such difficulty like trying to get initial contact with 60 frames per second, and then I found out that slow mo is 120, and it's so much easier to get. An initial contact is a fairly important time point. Any questions so far?
No.
Cool. I do not have the video of this person running just because potential HIPAA. But so going into his easy pace data, this is
Whoa,
this
is
like
this an
circle
update?
here. What?
Is this like dial thing an update? We've never seen this
No,
before.
it's always had this. I just never show it
Oh, okay.
because normally I don't think it's a big deal, but it actually is relevant to what I want to talk about with this case.
Okay.
But so there's this overall percentage that they have, and that's based on these three metrics: dynamic stability, symmetry, and impact loading. Um, you can see like just based on this, you can be like, okay, he's got pretty good dynamic stability, like decent symmetry. Impact loading is like a little off, but overall, like 67 is pretty good. Um, what's tough is like because it's a percentage, you assume like 100% is the goal, but that's not really like realistic. Most elite runners are somewhere around like 70 to 80. So honestly, this is like pretty good. Um, but then this is probably what you've seen more of, right, Pat?
Yeah, that's what we've looked at more so in the past.
Yeah, so then this is like another screen. This is all on a app on our iPad. So then I just flip to another screen, and then this shows like, okay, how did they get all the numbers for this dial? So there's stability, impact loading, and then these like spatiotemporal things. Um, so we can see that dynamic stability is actually really good. 12.3% on both left and right. That's percent instability. So how unstable is he? Essentially, how much is he moving like side to side, or how much like contralateral pelvic drop is there? Runeasi, like you can see they've got different colors here. They're like color coding system. The green, which is like, yay, you did it. For dynamic stability is I believe 20%. So he's like well below that, which is impressive. Then we go to impact loading. That's made of two metrics. That's impact magnitude and impact duration. I normally start with impact duration when talking to people. So impact duration is essentially like how long it takes for essentially from initial contact to peak force. This little like eye thing gives a good, um, generally a good visual to understand it. Um, but essentially you want a longer impact duration, because if we think about like the impulse of it, you have to essentially you have to have the same impulse, which is the area under a force time curve. So if you have a very short period of time to generate the same amount of impulse, you need a really high peak. And if you have a longer period of time, you have a lower peak. So what they're looking for is having a lower peak by spreading out that time. And this impact magnitude is essentially peak force. Um, it's partially based on how hard they're hitting the ground, but also just how well are they absorbing that force. Absorbing in quotes. I don't love that terminology for it, but I feel like it's the easiest way to like understand it. Impact magnitude was 5.2 on both of these, I believe. Their like green yay metric is like 3.0, so he's a little high. That's in terms of gravity. This is an acceleration, so it's not actually like peak force. Impact duration, he had 65 and 64 milliseconds. This is like part of the whole like ground contact time. And I believe green is 90 milliseconds. So he was a little off on there, which you can tell by the colors. This like darker orange is a little worse than the yellow. Any questions so far?
I think I'm gonna hold my questions till the end because you might answer my question here. But
Okay, cool. So then looking at spatiotemporal, they don't have coloration because it is so highly dependent on pace that you're running. So like faster paces, you're going to have generally a higher cadence, shorter ground contact time, generally a higher flight ratio. Um, so they can't give like one, yeah, this is optimal, because it depends on a person to person basis. I'll say, starting with cadence, the average cadence for a self-selected speed is 165 for recreational runners, so he's right at average. A common recommendation um, that I have heard throughout the years is trying to be at 180. Um, I don't necessarily love that recommendation. I think it's like just not feasible for a lot of people, especially like if you're not running particularly fast. So most of the time, like if him being 165, I'm like, it's all right. Like I don't think you really need to change that. If he was any lower, I'd be like, yeah, why don't we try like bumping that up a little bit? Usually cadence is the first thing I try and change because it impacts a lot of other metrics as well. But like if someone's in the 170s, I'm like, you know what, you're doing pretty good. I don't necessarily think this needs to change. Any change that I do suggest is usually like a max of like 5 steps per minute. So it's really not a lot. And I can say this, I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but the I can only say this for Garmin. I don't know about other like watch companies, but Garmin has a feature where you can set a cadence alert where your watch will like beep at you or buzz to let you know that you're below or above a certain cadence. I never do above a certain cadence because that just like never happens. But like definitely you can do below a cadence. So like below, for him, it would be like below 168 and then try and just keep it above that. Um, though I didn't tell him to change his cadence. That's just potential. Ground contact time, then 240 milliseconds, 241. I really never look at the absolute one. I always look at the asymmetry between those, which we'll get to. And flight ratio, most of the time I see between 30 and 35%. So he's right in the like range that I tend to see. Flight ratio essentially is a metric to show like how bouncy you are. So a higher flight ratio means you're a little more of a bouncy runner. Lower flight ratio means you're a little more grounded. There is some research to show that it would essentially be a lower flight ratio. So a little more grounded is more is related to a decreased injury risk. But then there's also like potential like performance, like this weird, intersection between injury risk and performance. So that's also a weird one to like try and cue, like, oh, don't jump as high. So I tend not to like change that with people. It's just something like neat to look at. Going to the symmetry, this shit is wild. Dynamic instability, 0% asymmetry. Impact magnitude, 0% asymmetry. Impact duration, 0.8% asymmetry. Ground contact time, 0.2% asymmetry. Like, he is perfect. Like, or I'll say like 99.1% off. Like, he's phenomenal, which is very cool. So I didn't have anything to say there. But something that I guess just a little foreshadowing, he's got perfect numbers here, but this is still in the yellow. This, for those listening, is me pointing to symmetry. Like, symmetry on the like compass thingy looks like it's about 50%. So it's like, well, why is that not absolutely maxed? Because it looks really good. We'll get back to that. Any questions on easy pace data?
No.
Okay. So now, initial thoughts. Overall, fairly good score, really good dynamic stability, impact loading metrics, not ideal, but also not bad, and very good symmetry metrics. But then, as I said, doesn't seem to add up with the symmetry window on the overall score. So then, tempo pace. What we can see is actually his overall score improved from 67 to 71%. Dynamic stability stayed pretty good. Symmetry, it actually looks like got a little better according to this, the dial here. And then impact loading seems roughly the same. So my question was like, well, how do we get better asymmetry? So if we look at all this data, it looks about like what I would expect. Dynamic stability increased, or dynamic instability increased a little bit. So he's a little more unstable, but that's what we expect with running faster. Same, just to go to the running faster bit. This is what I mean with the spatiotemporal stuff. Like, his cadence went from 165 to 177. So like, that's a pretty solid jump there. Flight ratio stayed the same despite an increase in cadence. And then ground contact time went down, but still good symmetry there. Impact loading, going to his impact duration, it went down slightly, but like, let me go back to it, from 65 and 64 to 58. So like, really not too much of a difference. The biggest thing is his impact magnitude on his left side went down to 4.8, which is generally considered a good thing. And his right side went up to 5.4 from 5.2. So it's kind of like, well, what the heck happened here? This is where I want to kind of bring us back to this stuff. Left torn meniscus, left Achilles tendinopathy. I was starting to wonder, like, oh, is this actually, where is it? Is this actually indicating that the left actually isn't striking as hard, isn't doing as much work, and the right kind of like needs to make up for that, based on this like history of injury there? That's often what I see. So that's what's tough about like the color coding on this, because if you purely look at the colors, it's like, oh well, this was really good. But it could actually just mean the opposite, which is how I take it. I guess there's the other way to look at it is like, oh, the left is doing better, the right's just kind of like struggling, maybe we need to work on the right more. I tell that to people, and like, so we don't actually know truly what like the cause of this is without further testing, which I didn't have time to do with this person because he was just coming in for the gait analysis. But I would want to know, like, what is his quad strength? What is his calf strength? Like those two, especially, maybe hamstrings as well. And just see like that the information there would then help me determine like which of the two hypotheses I subscribe to more. Just based off injury history, I tend to think the left side is a little weaker. Also, where is it? The subjective, like the left feeling weaker. So he's probably like compensating on that by like shielding it a little bit. Then if we look here, this is the main stuff I wanted to talk about actually, is like now the asymmetry stuff. I mean, there was nowhere to go but down from from the easy pace. Like it was nearly perfect. So we can see that a little more of an asymmetry with dynamic instability, not a big deal though, 1.7. Ground contact time still good at 0.7, but impact magnitude went up to 5.9%. So that's like, okay, that's starting to be like a noticeable difference. Which again was interesting to me. So what I initially said to this person was, yeah, I think what this is showing is that like at the higher forces you start to like shield the left and like make up for that more on the right. So that's why at easy pace we're not really seeing this difference, because easy pace it's easy enough, low enough loads that your left can definitely handle it. But then once you start going to this faster pace, you're hitting the ground harder every time. Your left just isn't able to handle it as well. But what held me up was, if we just look at this, the symmetry got better according to the overall metric from from easy pace to tempo pace. So again, this is tempo pace, and then this is easy pace. So easy pace is like clearly in like the yellow coloration, and then symmetry, or on the tempo pace, it kind of looks like a green yellow. It's kind of a gross color, but like it's allegedly better, even though these numbers show that like indicate that it's much worse. So that's part of my initial thoughts. Fairly large increase in cadence, still very good dynamic stability, slightly worse impact. So subjective feeling, left being weaker. The impact magnitude of asymmetry suggests the right side could be working slightly harder. All the stuff that I just said, I'm stealing my own thunder by not waiting to to read this. But then big question was like, overall score better than easy pace, even though impact loading and symmetry scores are worse. So like I really didn't understand this. So I told the person that I was like, that it doesn't change what I would recommend. Like I still think working on strengthening of both sides, like single leg, is going to be really important, especially doing some like running drills to work on like the coordination of like running power too. But I wanted to get to the bottom of this. So it's actually one of the great things about Runeasi is that they have you can like sign up for essentially like customer assistance things, and like bring them cases and be like, I don't know what's going on, and they can explain it a little bit more. And so that's what I did, and I thought it was super helpful. And essentially the biggest thing they said was, let's see. So here's my question. The biggest thing they said was like, well, did you look at the trends? And I was like, the trends. And that's what's fun is they don't. So just looking at tempo pace data here, like the overall metrics, these are all, because this was collected over a minute, these are all averages for the minute. So like here, it ends up being a 0% asymmetry on average over the minute for the easy pace. So if we go forward, I mean, that kind of steals the thunder, right? Easy pace dynamic stability, we can actually see that even though it averages out to be 0, there's kind of these like crossover bits where it starts out the right leg being a little more unstable, and then later on the left leg, it's like they almost do a complete like swap of where they are. And then the left leg starts to become a little bit more unstable. So I thought this was super interesting, and this was just purely for dynamic instability. But then if we look at impact magnitude data, same thing happens for easy pace here, where like you can see like right and left leg are just kind of like dancing back and forth. Where it starts like left leg has a little higher impact, then it goes to right leg, then it goes back to left leg for a little bit, and then big swap where then right leg starts to have a higher impact. So that's essentially, if you look at the area in between all of these different curves, it kind of cancels out to be zero, which I think was so fascinating. And then we look here, this is tempo, pace, impact magnitude data. We can see now that there is still some crossover, but there is this much longer, larger time period where there's a pretty big difference between the left and the right leg for overall impact. And the right leg stays relatively high the whole time. There's the left leg, I don't know what's going on with the left leg. It kind of like bumps up and down a little bit. But because of this, again, if you look at the area in between all of the curves, this is where it averages out to be the 5.9%, where the right leg is higher than the left leg. Does that make sense? Do I have any? No, I don't have any other slides. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions on that? And then I'll share a thought I have too.
What's the like sampling rate for the Runeasi? Do you know, like, how often is it? Like,
How often is it like collecting?
yeah.
Every 5 seconds.
And
So you can see
so
all
these
the
are
time
each
points down here.
okay.
Yeah. And so
So,
then it just smooths the curve instead of like having it be very
oh,
jagged.
interesting.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's just like
Um,
connecting lines from each of those timestamps right there.
yeah, exactly. Like this is essentially a like 2-line um line graph essentially, and
Yeah.
then they just smooth it so it doesn't look super jagged. Yeah, and you can like overlay the benchmark colors too, so if I didn't want those, I could like push this little button up top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so again, I think it's super interesting that they do that. They do have a like reports function, where like you can see all of the different graphs like these at like one time, which I have shown previously. But I find, especially for the like 1 minute durations, like that's not really that helpful for me to look at all of them at once. And like they end up being so small that I'm not really like able to look too closely at those. But especially now, like I know that if I see any like weird things like this, where it's like, why does symmetry look better here versus here? Um, I would know to now look at this. And my guess for why, because still it's like the tempo pace has a higher asymmetry. So what's up with that? I think it's because it doesn't cross as much. And there's not as large of a like degree of crossover, like because it's a consistent higher. I think the system rates that as like better asymmetry because it is consistent.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Uh,
now with this, like, what is this guy doing? Like, or
yeah.
yeah, what's
Um,
happening?
so I he's someone that I'm not like seeing for any like plan of care. It was just like a one-off gait analysis. So we talked a little bit about strengthening stuff, some drills. I'm honestly I can't remember all the stuff. I didn't give him a ton of things, but I was like, essentially because he wants to over the winter emphasize strength training more. So I was like, you should really like emphasize some single leg loading stuff, especially for the quads and the calves. So, I mean, if I was to give him things right now, I can't remember if I told him to do these things at the time, but like, I really like a Bulgarian split squat. I think some sort of Bulgarian split squat or some sort of like single leg squatty motion, like some sort of lunge position, I think would work really well to get the quads a little bit. If you really want to go all out on like isolating quads, like that's where I do a single leg knee extension. Um, Single leg calf raises I think are super important, especially knowing his history of Achilles tendinopathy. Like he's not hurting himself by doing those. Um, and then also like some drills that I really like. I think we talked about like a skip for height. So what I like about that is generating and then again absorbing. I can't think of a better word, but like generating and absorbing force single leg, so you're like jumping up as high as you can and then landing on that and not on that same leg and then switching sides. I really like that one for him to like let his body know like, hey, it's okay to be loading this left leg. um and then I think I also gave him some like just some sort of like easy plyometric, like single leg plyometric, like a single leg band assisted hop to
Mm,
just like let his body know like, hey, it is okay to load this, because sometimes there's just like the motor programming piece of it.
mm.
Um, there's
Rad.
something, yeah, there's something different. Like I want to change subject a little bit, but if you have any questions or follow up stuff on that, we can talk about that as well.
Nah, nah. Hit me with the switch up.
So the switch up and why I wanted to talk about this case in the first place um, is, to me, this really highlights the importance of looking at raw data too, because that's essentially what this chart is, right? This chart is raw data, as opposed to looking at the averages, which would be this. I guess this shows it better, where it crosses back and forth over itself, so there definitely is asymmetry at each time point, but it overall ends up looking like 0% asymmetry there. So that's where, not looking just at the mean of data. This is where it's nice when, especially with smaller sample sizes, when authors of articles like give the individual data points. Like if you have 10, 12 people, like show me all of their individual data points. Like it can be really busy, but this is why, right? Because there could be one person that's a really big outlier above, one person a big outlier below, and then it makes the mean a certain way. Um, yeah, that's my piece. Look at individual data points. It it is definitely something I am going to be doing now with the Runeasi stuff.
Yeah, and with the like raw data that you just showed, how long can you capture like one thing of raw data like that? Like how long can it go for? Because you only did a minute.
Yeah. Um, that thing can go for a long time. Um, I've had it on for a long run. So I had it on for like 70 minutes. The graph, like obviously is then very shrunk, so it doesn't look as clean as those graphs. Like it's just like
Yeah.
so it's not as useful in those cases. Um, unless you change the like sampling rate. And I think there's a way to change to like sample every 5 minutes or something instead of every 5 seconds
Oh, interesting. So
if you're
you
doing
can't
it.
like if you had it for an extensive period of time, you can't like zoom in on like different time points. Like you can't be like, all right, I want to look
Mm,
at the first 3 minutes here out of whatever, and then like scroll those 3 minutes
yeah.
across.
Yeah, you can on the trends section, like what I showed, like that screen, the report that they send is just a PDF. So like you can't do it on the report. So the report looks very much like up and down. You can see the general trends of things, but um you can't see zoom in. So that's actually also where I'm going to look more at the trends section to potentially zoom in on these longer runs.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's somewhat nice they have like that color coordination going for kind of the magnitudes of different things because at least in my opinion when it comes to like visualizing data, sometimes the graphs can make things seem exponentially worse than maybe they actually are, or like vice versa. Like it can make things look not that significant when really they're like a big change, and that can be whether the actual like intervals of the graph are just like not conducive for the data taken, or if like other way around, like the data is just like so big that like it makes everything just look so
Yeah.
the magnitude of it looks so large, you know. And
Yeah.
that's where I think like having that like color coordination is uh pretty nice. Of course, like I think for like the running, like the Runeasi, I don't know much about it outside of like what we've talked, but like if I'm thinking about like extrapolating that to like other forms of tech, it's like definitely a case by case or like a certain population that you might expect different values from. So like having a generalized like kind of color coordination might not necessarily work and might provide like false narratives for other kind of like tests and such, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, and that's where I have a love-hate relationship with the color coordination because it like the coordination is simple, right? Like it's like, oh, this is green, this is good, this is red, this is bad.
Yeah.
Um, but the two my two qualms with it is I guess one we kind of saw in the data here is that it made it look like the left was actually better than the right when I actually think it is vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's important to take like the context of the person. Um, but then also I also have seen people that don't have very good numbers and so everything is red and they're just like, oh no, I'm a terrible runner. And that and I don't want people to like feel bad about themselves because of that.
That's a great point.
Yeah, yeah. So especially if someone has like a low score, like overall score, I tell them like, "Oh yeah, you know, this is the overall score. I don't look into that too much. I just look at like the different numbers. Like I try not to look at the colors or something like that. Like it'd be great if we could turn the colors on and off for it." So,
Gotcha.
run easy if you're listening. I guess put that on the docket.
Yeah, put it up there. Get your R&D team on that.
um Yeah, they did say that they're coming out with some big updates to the UI in the new year. So maybe they will have that. Maybe they read my mind. Um, but I think that's all I got. I know we definitely went over because I spend way too long talking about the numbers, but hopefully people appreciated that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't have any other questions. That's the running man for you.
Well, cool. That has been another episode of Data Nerds. As always, if you enjoy what you're listening to, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave a nice review. It makes our hearts tickle. And
It
if
makes
you're
mine
watching
tickle
on
big.
YouTube,
Really gets mine tickling.
uh,
All I want for Christmas is a
just
nice review. Go give us a review.
yeah. um, and if you're watching on YouTube, hello and
S-
please
Go ahead,
subscribe and
smash that
like.
subscribe button. Smash that subscribe button.
All right, adios.